What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing a triple buffed, triple bug and steel team in the Open Great League with Shadow Fortress, Shadow Scizor, and Genesect. Now obviously this team is incredibly weak to fire, so if you do see a fire type Pokemon, unfortunately there is just nothing you can do. Or is there? Who knows, maybe I was able to be a fire-type Pokemon with this team, but I guess you'll just have to stick around and find out. But anyways, of course, fire is the only weakness to this team, so when you don't see fire, this team is actually really strong into most other things, and actually went quite positive with it on the day. Now, of this trio, Shadow Scizor was absolutely the best Pokemon, but I have to say, Shadow Fortress was probably the worst. Now, I know that the non-Shadow is the third highest ranked Pokemon for the Great League, but the Shadow being slightly lower than that, it feels like unless you're willing to shield the first charge move in every neutral matchup, you're probably just going to lose, and with the other two Pokemon being very glassy, I would often just soft lose the lead matchup there to save my shields for the backline, and it actually worked out for me most of the time. Now there are actually 3 other buffed bug and steel type Pokemon, so let me know if you want to see a part 2 with Wormadam on Metal Sound, and then Durant and Shadow Escavalier on Bug Bite, but for now let's get into the question of the day. What is your favorite dual typing currently available in Pokemon Go? That means unfortunately you cannot pick Ghost and normal typing, as Hisuian Zoro, whilst it is coming very soon, is currently not available. Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Shadow Fortress into Greninja. So this is a really positive matchup for the Shadow Fortress. The opponent is going to stay in for a single Water Shuriken before swapping into a Shadow Kanto Marowak. So that allows me to outpace them to the Sand Tomb. You can see Sand Tomb really doesn't do much damage there, but what I'm hoping is with that defense drop, I've put them into range where Shadow Scizor can come in and get the full farm down with the Bullet Punch damage, and we do exactly that. Now the opponent comes in with the Shadow Drapion. I'm going to fire off the Trailblaze immediately here, and Trailblaze going to be shielded by the opponent, and the opponent doesn't know this yet, but this game is already over and there's nothing they can do about it. Of course, Genesect is going to double resist the Poison Sting damage. I can just safely shield this up here and go for a full Fury Cutter farm down. The opponent will be forced to swap back into Greninja despite taking super effective damage from the Fury Cutters. X-Scissor grabs the final shield. They will reach a charge move here, but it just doesn't really matter. I'm going to shield the Night Slash. I'm actually going to swap into my Fortress here, force the opponent to expend all of their energy, as otherwise we would farm them down. And now we can come back in with the Genesect, get the Fury Cutter farm down, and whilst I had the energy for the X-Scissor, I'm full sending the Techno Blast just for the sake of it. I'm able to take out Shadow Drapion, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG stop in there into next battle, another Greninja in the lead, and this time the opponent is choosing to stay in this matchup here. They must be double weak to the Fortress, which is pretty good for the rest of my team here, as we do have 3 of essentially the same Pokemon. However, Fortress does play quite a lot differently to that Shadow Scizor. But anyways, we're going to see a Clodsire. We're going to come in with our Scizor, and the opponent responds with a Furret, and at this point, it's looking to be really good for me. I'm going to go straight for Trailblaze. Trailblaze going to be no-shielded, and whilst I will resist this, I might as well just use my shield here, as Clodsire has only double resisted fast move pressure, and whilst yes they will probably just barely reach 2 charge moves up against the Shadow Scizor, we can go straight for Trailblaze. Once again, we are now double boosted. These bullet punches are absolutely gonna tear through this Clodsire here. Clodsire is supposed to be a bulky Pokemon, but at this point they recognize there's no point throwing there, as I would just be able to farm down with whatever my third Pokemon was, and so the opponent allows the bullet punch farm down, and I'm able to take that game. But GG's to that trainer there, and into the Nightmare lead, we see a Talonflame. My only win condition is, for whatever reason, if they no-shield the Rock Tomb. But unfortunately, they do shield. So at this point, I'm going to come in with a Genesect. I'm just going to give up. I'm going to no-shield this. The opponent fires off a blind Brave Bird, but then they swap out there. So I recognize I still have a sliver of hope here. But what I kind of need to do is grab the final shield from the Dunsparce here. But I recognize as well, if I don't grab that shield, I need to deal minimal damage. But I need to also get a Night Slash boost. And we do exactly both of those things there. So at this point, I kind of still need Shadow Scizor to live and incinerate, which I don't think will be the case. But let's see what their final Pokemon is. It's going to be a Gastrodon, so we can go for the Trailblaze here. Of course, Trailblaze were already boosted. It gets the one shot. And now, once again, my win condition is if the opponent no shields for whatever reason. And they do exactly that. I don't understand why. But Night Slash takes out the Talonflame from that health range. I guess my only thinking is that the opponent didn't realize we got that Night Slash boost there, so they expected to tank the first charge move. But anyways, I'm not going to complain about it. GG's to that trainer. I'm very happy with that win. We should not be winning up against a Talonflame lead with this team. But anyways, into next battle, we see Dedenne there, and we're going to go for a Sand Tomb, debuff the defense after they've already boosted it, and you can see that just doesn't do much damage whatsoever. So maybe I should have just fired off a Rock Tomb here. But either way, we come in with our Shadow Scissor. I'm going straight for Night Slash here, otherwise they would be able to fire off a Parabolic Charge. Night Slash actually grabs a shield, so I don't mind shielding as well. Matching shields here. The opponent is going to swap into Galissapod. So at this point, I'm firing off the Night Slash on the CMP tie here, winning CMP, and Night Slash is going to be no shielded. At this point, I'm just going to hope that they don't have a Ghost type in the back. We're going to save our final shield for the Genesect, and I'm actually not going to throw a Charge Move here. Instead, what I'm going to do, use my final shield, commit to the Fury Cutter farm down. We get the farm down there, and let's see what they've got in the back. They've actually got a Grumpig, but they make the perfect catch there, catching exactly as I throw the X's. I go for the full undercharge, but it still takes Dedenne out from that range, and as a result, they get to the Dynamic Punch before I reach back-to-back X-Scissors. Brilliant catch there by the opponent, and as a result we end up losing that game, which looked pretty good for me. But anyways, into next battle, we're going to see a Jumpluff in the lead. Going to be say swapping into a Kanto Marowak. However, this is a non-shadow this time around, so Bone Club is going to do some decent damage there. I can afford to no shield that. Fire off the Sand Tomb here, and then I'm actually going to swap into Genesect because unfortunately Sizzle going to take quite a lot of damage. I mean, Genesect also not exactly bulky, but we're going to come in with the Genesect. We are now going to overfarm, fire off the X-Scissor just before they do reach another Bone Club. X-Scissor grabs the first shield from the opponent, so I don't mind at this point double shielding the Genesect. I know, of course, they've got a Jumpluff in the lead. I'm going to go straight for X-Scissor. I could have gone for one Fury Cutter first, but either way, we go for X-Scissor, and the opponent is going to no-shield the first move, but I'm able to reach another X-Scissor throwing on CMP with the Aerial Ace, and X-Scissor grabs the final shield. So at this point, they might be weak to the Bug typing or the Steel typing in the back. Aerial Ace gets the KO from that range. I'm going to come in with my Shadow Scissor. If they farm up to the Acrobatics, I will swap and try to catch a charge move, but they just go for another Aerial Ace, which means, of course, Scissor able to tank that fairly comfortably. I'm now going to overfarm, fire off the Night Slash on the CMP type, winning CMP with the Scissor. Night Slash gets the KO there, and their final Pokemon is Greninja, and this is a super effective Trailblaze from Shadow Scissor. It gets the one shot, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's top in there into next battle. We're going to see Shadow Fortress into Castform. So, an interesting lead matchup here. Castform, of course, going to be very spammy with Hex and most likely Rock Weather Ball. I'm going to no-shield the first move here as the opponent does fire off that Weather Ball, and I will now be able to outpace them just barely to the Rock Tomb there before they do reach a second Weather Ball, and we actually grab a shield before they swap into a Fire type, and I was almost certain that was going to be a Skeledirge there, but no, that is a Lampent, and they're on Astonish. So that is really good for me. Now we can come in with our Shadow Scissor. We grab the final shield with the Sand Tomb. They fire off the Flame Burst, which is, by the way, an awful charge move. We can now fire off the Night Slash. Night Slash, of course, gonna get the KO there, and let's see what the opponent wants to do. They come in with the Castform, and once again, I'm hoping they don't have a Ghost type in the back. We're actually going to no-shield. They snipe with the Medicham, but we should be looking fairly good here. Of course, we're going to come in with the Genesect. I don't know how much damage an X-Scissor or a Technoblast will do in this matchup here with the Fury Cutters adding up, so we're going to shield this. I think I'm going to play it safe, fire off the X-Scissor just in case I need a second charge move to get the KO anyways. We go for the X-Scissor, and that actually does more damage than I was expecting, and so I'm able to swap, catch the charge move onto my Fortress, and that should be the game wrapped up. The opponent comes back in with their Castform. I'm going straight for the Technoblast. Technoblast gets the KO there. We can Fury Cutter, farm down the Medicham, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. We're going to see Shadow Fortress into Shadow Typhlosion. Now, we've already beat a Talonflame. We just beat a Lampent as well, but surely there's no way back up against a Shadow Typhlosion. And the fact that we don't reach a Sand Tomb there pretty much just guarantees we're going to lose this game. However, they swap out straight away, probably expecting, since we've got Fortress in the lead, we've probably got a really good answer to Fire types in the back, and since we stayed in, we might be double weak to Fire. But unfortunately, for me, we are triple weak to Fire. They're probably just going to shield the Night Slash here from this Shadow Scissor, and as a result, there is just nothing we can do. We can come in with a Genesect. You can see 2 Incinerates will be enough to fully one-shot the Genesect, or sorry, 2-shot the Genesect, but they fire off the Thunder Punch there, taking out the Genesect, and unfortunately, we do lose that game. But GG's up in there. Into next battle, we're going to see a Sableye in the lead. So we are going to be outpaced to that first charge move as the opponent is just going to go ahead and fire off the foul play. I'm now going to overfarm just slightly, fire off the Rock Tomb on good timing here. Rock Tomb is going to grab the shield from the opponent. The opponent cannot commit to the farm down there. They're trying to, but they realize Bug Bites are doing more damage than their Shadow Claws. They fire off the foul play, but they do not overfarm enough to reach another foul play up against the Scizor. Now they come in with Mana Buzz. Unfortunately, they do resist all my charge moves, so I'll swap into Genesect. I was not intending to catch a charge move there, so I'm going to shield that up anyways, and the opponent is going to bank a little bit of energy before swapping into a Blastoise. But Genesect, very spammy here. We've got such a huge energy advantage that back-to-back X-Scissors will be enough to get the KO here, so the opponent going to be forced to use their final shield, and I should still be able to outpace them to the next charge move. So I'm going to use the shield here as they fire off the Hydro Cannon, but actually, I'm going to bank the charge move, swap into my Scizor, throw on the CMP tie, winning CMP, Trailblaze gets the KO, it boosts up my attack there, and the opponent needs to overfarm, but it doesn't really matter at this point. Night Slash, whilst there is resisted damage, won't quite get the KO, but the opponent needs back-to-back charge moves, and even then, it doesn't really matter, as Genesect banked the X's before it left, and so I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into next battle, we're going to see a Primeape in the lead. So, of course, Fury Cutters and Bug Bites are going to be resisted. Scizor has a decent matchup here with the Bullet Punch damage, but I'm just going to stay in. They full send the close combat before swapping into Blastoise, and unfortunately, I don't throw it on the best timing there. I wasn't entirely sure if I would live the rollout damage, but it turns out we do, so could have gone for a couple of extra Bug Bites first, but it doesn't really matter too much. We're going to come in with the Genesect, and because I debuffed their defense there, an X-Scissor will definitely get the KO. So, we fire the X-Scissor on CMP, winning CMP and getting the KO there, and the opponent's going to come back in with their Primeape. Now, unfortunately, I'm not able to reach the Techno Blast, so we go for the X-Scissor, and the opponent actually no-shields, calling that they will live it, and we're going to just have to no-shield as well. The opponent fires off the Rage Fist. They do not get the KO, but unfortunately, we get a one-turn swap whilst the opponent gets a zero-turn swap, so they're one turn ahead of me, and it doesn't really matter at this point. Of course, I would have been able to reach back-to-back Night Slashes, but yeah, it doesn't really matter there. They're still going to have two shields. The first one grabs a shield. It's actually a CMP tie there. So, of course, we win CMP, but Parabolic Charge gets the KO there. And unless we reach an X-Scissor on our Genesect, it wouldn't have mattered anyways. We definitely don't get there in time. We're not reaching the Sand Tomb. They're able to Thunder Shock, farm down the rest of my team. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to that opponent there. Into next battle, into Azumarill we lead, and once again Bug Bite is going to be resisted. Bug is actually resisted by so many different typings, but Fortress is just going to play out the zero shield scenario every single time, pretty much. We fire off the Rock Tomb, we actually grab a shield there from the opponent before they swap into Defense from Deoxys. So I'm firing off the Sand Tomb. Sand Tomb is going to be no shielded, but these Bug Bites are absolutely shredding through their HP. If you didn't know this already, Defense Deoxys, whilst it has a huge defense stat, it has a really low HP stat, which means one turn fast moves in particular do a lot of damage, but unfortunately they do reach a last second Psycho Boost. They're already double debuffed, and of course that is resisted anyways, so it didn't do too much damage, and they've actually got a Shadow Hypno, so double Psychic in the back. There is just nothing they can do here. We're now going to overfarm, fire off the X-Scissor number 2. X-Scissor easily takes out the Shadow Hypno. We can come in with the Scizor, and the opponent recognizing there's nothing they can do, and so they just concede the match. So, GG's up in there. Into next battle. Once again, Shadow Fortress leading into something that will resist the Bug Bite damage, but once again, we're happy to play out the zero shield scenario. We're going to no-shield the first move here as the opponent is going to fire off a Surf there, probably recognizing that 2 charge moves will be required to take us out anyways, so they go for the Surf there, and a second Surf, even though I've just debuffed their attack, probably still does just barely get the KO. Which is actually better for me, as now we can come in with the Shadow Scissor. I'm hoping for the full farm down. We actually just barely miss out, so I'm forced to throw a Night Slash here. Didn't really want to have to shield up a charge move there or tank a Surf, despite them being being debuffed there. They're going to come in with their own Fortress, so I'm going to fire off the Night Slash. Of course, Night Slash going to hit for neutral damage, and the opponent is going to no-shield the first move. They do just barely outpace me to this next charge move, however. So at this point, I'm going to shield up the Rock Tomb. I'm going to fire off the Night Slash straight away, and Night Slash probably grabs a shield here, and it does grab the shield. So I swap into my final Pokemon, my Genesect. We are both dealing resisted fast move damage here, but we're going to fire off the X-Scissor as we do outpace them. X-Scissor grabs the final shield. So at this point, I'm definitely going to match shields, hoping whatever is in the back is going to be weak to the Bug or the Steel typing, but no, it's going to be a Diggersby. So at this point, of course, I'm going to throw on the CMP tie with the potential Fire Punch. Techno Blast doesn't really do much damage since I was debuffed. If I wasn't debuffed there, potentially that puts them into range where Night Slash plus the bullet punch damage does get the KO. However, unfortunately, since we were debuffed, Night Slash from this range does not take out the Diggersby, and a Fire Punch, obviously double super effective, will easily take out the Scizor, and unfortunately I do lose that game. But GG's to opponent there into next battle. We're going to see a Mandibuzz in the lead. So we are going to stay in this matchup once again. I don't really need to like swap out of any bad matchups here, because if it's bad for my lead Pokemon, it's just probably bad for the entire team, like a Fire type, for example. But anyways, they fire off the Aerial Ace there. We are now going to overfarm just slightly. Could have thrown the Rock Tomb slightly sooner there. It doesn't really make a huge difference. Rock Tomb still does big damage. They're still going to reach a last second charge sweep anyways. And now they're debuffed. Of course, Aerial Ace will not get the KO, but I can get the farm down, come out with the Rock Tomb loaded, and again, we see a Diggersby. So this time I actually fire off the Rock Tomb there, recognizing that Sand Tomb doesn't really help me that much in this matchup. I guess it maybe would have put them into range where I could just go straight Exeter, but anyways, gonna shield. They actually fire off a Scorching Sands there and drop my attack, so potentially they don't even have Fire Punch at all. So we fire off the Exeter. Exeter doesn't do too much damage. I overfarm, but this is too soon for another Scorching Sands. This is the Fire Punch, so strange play by the opponent there, but because they are debuffed from that Rock Tomb, we actually tank it just barely, and we grab the final shield, or sorry, the first shield from the opponent. Now, I believe they are one away from another Fire Punch. I expect they overfarm just slightly, and so I swap out after 2 Bullet Punches. I catch the charge move as Fire Punch takes out the Fortress, and their final Pokemon is a Shadow Drapion. Now, suddenly things are looking a lot better for the Shadow Scizor. Night Slash grabs the final shield there. The opponent is going to fire off the charge move. They have farmed up to the potential crunch. I'm going to shield. They bait with the Aqua Tail, but it just does not matter. At this point, they're in range where even a resisted, non-slab Night Slash gets the KO there. I'm able to Bullet Punch, farm down the Diggersby, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. We're going to see a Gastrodon in the lead. So, this is a neutral matchup here. We're going to stay in this lead matchup, and I will go straight for a Sand Tomb. Now, you could argue, like, I should at least bait like I've got a potential Earthquake here and farm up a little bit more energy, but I wanted to get that off before they throw their own charge move, and this is the one time where I did actually shield the Fortress in the lead, and that will actually allow me to fully farm them down there. So the opponent swaps out, but they've got a Skeledirge, so we fire off the Rock Tomb, and that will actually allow me to just barely reach a Night Slash before they fully incinerate, farm me down. And Night Slash is actually going to be no shielded. That is big for me, but I've only got double resisted bug of type fast move damage here, so we come in with the Genesect. I will not be able to fast move farm them down here before they reach back-to-back Torch Songs. First one boosts up their attack there once again. The second one will very easily take out the Genesect, and I can't even bug bite, farm them down with the Fortress. So unfortunately, I do end up getting sweeped by the Skeledirge. But GG's to that trainer there. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Steelix in the lead. So Steelix has gained a lot of popularity recently, and it has reminded me, like, why does Shadow Steelix not have these sort of bright red eyes like every other Shadow Pokemon? It's very strange there. It used to back when it was in, like, Giovanni's lineup as the middle Pokemon, but for whatever reason, nowadays and for a very long time, it just has the regular Steelix eyes, so very strange. But either way, we are going to tank both moves. They then swap, catch the charge move onto Dusclops. Very smart play there. But with that Sand Tomb, now, of course, Night Slash should be enough damage to get the KO there. I will not need to throw 2 charge moves on my Shadow Scizor. They actually go for an Ice Punch, so potentially on Ice Punch and Poltergeist. So I'm actually going to undercharge, just recognizing I can overfarm a little bit. But at this point, I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe they just threw the wrong move by accident there. So I'm going to shield. They go for another Ice Punch. So it's guaranteed they do not have Shadow Punch. I can live the Ice Punch from this range. But no, they had Shadow Punch the whole time. Like, what the heck was even that? Like, that was the strangest mid-game matchup I think I've ever played. Like, I don't know if that was a 5-head play there, making me try and think that I can fully farm them down there just to get KO'd, or if they just didn't have a clue what they were doing there and got very lucky. But either way, we're in a bit of an awkward position here as they still have a shield. But you know what? I'm just full sending the Techno Blast off the bat, and it does huge damage. They don't respect it, and as a result, we get the Fury Cutter farm down. We Fury Cutter farm down the Dusclops, and despite the very odd mid-game matchup there, I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to our trainer into next battle. We're going to see a Corsola in the lead. So, once again, they're going to resist the bug bite damage because it is a one-turn fast move. However, it is kind of chunking. But once again, I feel like Sand Tomb doesn't really help me in this matchup. So, again, going to fire off the Rock Tomb there. They actually allow me to throw that before they do throw their own Nightshade, which doesn't really make a difference here. They're still going to need 2 charge moves to get the KO anyways. Although, actually, maybe if they threw first, they could have committed to a full farm down. But we come in with a Shadow Scissor. The opponent probably not expecting a second Steel and Bug type Pokemon. So, they swap straight away into Weezing. They do bait with a Sludge. It doesn't really matter though, as of course we are going to get the farm down anyways. And their final Pokemon is the Dene, which of course we're happy to see up against the Shadow Scissor with such a huge energy advantage, as now we can farm up and fire off back-to-back Trailblazers before they can fire off a Parabolic Charge and boost up the defense. Now that's why I'm expecting the opponent to try and catch the next charge move onto their Corsola, and they do swap out. Honestly, we barely hang on there. That was a very risky play on my end, but we come out with the Trailblaze loaded, and Trailblaze takes out the Dene, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's top in there into next battle. We're going to see a Shadow Gligar in the lead. So, once again, they're going to resist the bug bite damage there. You can see it is still chunking, and we are resisting the Fury Cutters. However, Fury Cutter, they're going to be able to spam charge moves a lot faster than we're able to spam our own. We're going to fire off the Rock Tomb, and once again, I'm probably just going to play out the Zero Shield scenario here. Just soft losing in this matchup. And the opponent just barely reaches that charge move there. Honestly, I kind of wish I stopped attacking to get a little bit more farm with my Shadow Scissor. And you will see farming with the Scissor would have been ideal, as they're going to come in with a Diggersby. And because we only got a 1 bullet punch advantage, I'm not going to be able to outpace them to the Trailblaze before they reach a Fire Punch there. So, of course, I'm going to go for a Night Slash bait here. Night Slash is still going to be shielded by the opponent. And at this point, the opponent overfarms just by 1 quick attack, allowing me to reach the Trailblaze. And Trailblaze is unfortunately shielded this time around. So at this point, I recognize they will outpace me to the next move. I'm going to come in with my Genesect, but the opponent swaps out straight away into the Dene. And unfortunately, because they did that, they're going to reach a Parabolic Charge first, boost up the defense. And whilst Technoblast is a really hard-hitting move here, Genesect very attack-weighted. Because they bopped up the defense there, it does not get the KO. And a Parabolic Charge up against the Glassy Genesect takes us out there. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's top in there into next battle. We can see a Clodsire in the lead. So once again, they are going to resist the bug bite damage, but we are double resisting the poison sting damage. So at this point, I think this time I will go for an overfarm. I'm going to farm up like I've got Earthquake here to maybe grab a shield from the opponent. The opponent full sends their own Earthquake there. We're going to fire off the Sand Tomb, and unfortunately, they do just let that go through. So we fire off a second Sand Tomb here. But they're just going to no-shield once again. Sand Tomb doesn't do much damage there. These bug bites, it looks like maybe doing slightly more damage now, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to let the Earthquake take us out there, come in with the Sizzle, and commit to a Bullet Punch farm down. We come with the Sizzle, they actually bank the energy. I don't think they're going to reach a charge move, even if they come up against our Genesect. We're going to go straight for Trailblaze, and Trailblaze is actually no-shielded by the Lapras, so good play by the opponent, recognizing they can just barely tank that, and fire off the Sparkling Aria before we farm them down. And their final Pokemon is going to be a Blastoise. So, of course, Blastoise is going to take resisted damage from the Bullet Punches here, but we go for a second Trailblaze, boosting up our attack there, and even though it's resisted, Bullet Punches are starting to add up. So they fire off the Hydro Cannon. They are going to try and catch the charge move onto Clodsire, but it backfires. And this one, we're going to fire off the Night Slash. Excuse me there. I recognize they will outpace me to the next charge move, so I come in with my Genesect. I can tank a Hydro Cannon, and because we swap out there, I'm able to reach an X-Scissor, throwing on CMP with this Blastoise, and certainly from this range, it takes out the Blastoise, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's top end there into next battle, Shadow Fortress into Shadow Drifblim. So this is not a very good matchup for me, and they're on Astonish as well. So doing quite a lot of fast move pressure whilst our bug bites are double resisted. If they're on Mystical Fire here, it absolutely one-shots me. But luckily for me, it is just a nicely win. They're now going to swap into Diggersby. I fire off the Sand Tomb there, hoping that will put them into range, but I can just go straight for an X-Scissor, and the opponent does not fire off that Fire Punch immediately. So I fire off the X-Scissor, but they are going to overfarm. So at this point, there's no point shielding here just because they will be able to reach back-to-back Fire Punches, and even though they've overfarmed here, they're going to reach back-to-back Fire Punches up against the Sizzle as well. So unfortunately, going to be forced to use my shield here as they go for another Fire Punch. We get the farm down there, and their final Pokemon is a Shadow Drapion. So at this point, I'm going to stay in this matchup, of course, taking double resisted poison sting damage. They fire off the crunch. They do not drop my defense. I'm firing off the Night Slash. We've got back-to-back charge moves loaded, and they're actually going to no-shield that, and here I make a big mistake. Of course, Night Slash is going to be cheaper, but I'm not going to reach 3 moves here, so there's no point going for Night Slash. I might as well guarantee an attack boost with the Trailblaze, because now Night Slash number 2 grabs the final shield. I have to swap into my Fortress there, but it's too little too late. The opponent can fire off the Icy Wind. They get the KO, and Bullet Punch doesn't quite take out the Drift Blimp. If I farmed and fired off the Trailblaze instead, of course, it would have dealt more damage, and I would have been able to take that game. But anyways, GG's to that opponent into the final battle of this video, leading into a Lapras. So a positive matchup for me. Again, I'm not going to bother shielding as they fire off the Sparkling Aria before swapping into Shadow Drapion. Now, this point I've learned my lesson. Sand Tomb is kind of just pointless, so I'm not going to bother throwing that. Instead, going to come in with the Genesect after firing off a Rock Tomb. I'm going to shield the first move. They actually bait with an Aqua Tail there, and they don't even reach another move. So the fact that I debuffed their attack there, I probably should have just no-shielded, especially since now they come back in with a Lapras. Sparkling Aria is going to do more damage than a debuffed Crunch, I believe, although maybe actually it does about the same. But either way, we fire off the X's at number 2, and the opponent is going to no-shield. Sparkling Aria does not get the KO, so we come in with our Shadow Scissor. The opponent comes in with the Wigglytuff, and they're instantly going to concede the match. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.